With its political future in doubt, Turkey's AK party is hitting back. On the streets, where suspected former members of an ultra-nationalist group are arrested, and in the courts, where AK tries to prove it doesn't have an Islamic agenda. But is Turkey headed for more divisions over the role of Islam in society? A government on trial? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Kamal Santamaria. Turkey is a paradox, a country where religion is everything and nothing at the same time. It is and always has been a secular state. Religion and politics are kept separate. But the ruling AK party has its roots in Islam, and while that's concerned many for some time now, the issue is now before the country's constitutional court. If Turkey's chief prosecutor has his way, AK will be banned, Prime Minister Erdogan thrown out of office. But the party is fighting back. On Thursday, it made its case to the court, a day after police arrested prominent critics of the Prime Minister for suspected involvement in a plot to overthrow the government. Bethan Howe has more.
Police have detained 21 people as part of a year-long investigation into Ergenekon, a secularist group suspected of planning a military coup. These include two well-respected critics of the current government, both retired generals. Reports in the Turkish media say that Ergenekon will be indicted and its members tried on terrorism offences. The arrests have further shaken the political situation in Turkey. They come at the same time as the ruling AK party is being taken to court. The chief prosecutor of Turkey's Court of Appeal is attempting to shut down the party, claiming it has violated the principle of secularism enshrined in their constitution. Some observers say the timing of the latest arrests is no coincidence.
The government takes advantage of the alleged coup to liquidate its opponents. It has turned into personal revenge of Erdogan's opponents.
But the government alleges that the arrested men are part of an armed terrorist organisation, specifically what is believed to be an anti-democratic coalition known as the Deep State. While their relationship with Ergenekon remains unclear, they are reported to have strong links with one another.
When NATO was formed, it was keen to plant secret groups in its member countries that are capable of overthrowing the regimes in case the government is taken over by communists. European countries have managed to dismantle these groups, but in Turkey these groups continue to exist and manage to become working for their own interests.
Arresting senior military officers cannot take place in Turkey without a warrant from the chief commander. This means the army has granted its permission to take the situation further, and that the army distances itself from the alleged plot. But what impact will this move have on the future relationship between the government and the army? The answer will depend on the Supreme Court ruling on the future of the AK party itself. Bethan Howe for Inside Story.
Let's bring in our guests now at this point. In Ankara, Suat Kılıçdaroğlu, he is a member of the AK Party, or the Justice and Development Party as it is officially known. He is also the Deputy Chairman of Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. In Istanbul, Halidun Solmaztürk, a retired Brigadier General in the Turkish Army. And in Marseille, Anne Dismore, she's a former Swedish ambassador to Turkey, but also the author of a new book called Turkey Decoded. Thank you all for joining us here on Inside Story. Suat Kılıçdaroğlu, if I can come to you first. In Ankara, there was a claim in that report which we just played that these arrests have been timed very specifically and are in fact about neutralising opposition to the AK party at this point in time. How do you respond to that?
I don't believe that's the case. The prosecutor has been investigating this case for months now. And, the government has no influence over the prosecution and how it progresses. We were also surprised to see the arrests that occurred 2 days ago, quite dramatic, but the prosecutor must have good reasons for those arrests. There must be evidence that warrants that. I hope the allegations that there is an organized plot to overthrow our government will prove to be untrue, but if there are people who, and it appears from what has been leaked to the press so far, that there are people prepared to take measures that cannot be condoned in a normal democracy, they should be faced and held accountable for their acts and plans.
And on that point, what I would question, and do correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that in addition to these 21 arrests, there have been all up some 70 arrests, but no indictments so far. That to me doesn't look like the government is actually taking real action other than just arresting these people.
It's true, there have been quite a bit of people arrested in earlier months, and I have to admit the process appears to take quite long. But I think yesterday an announcement was made by the prosecutor's office that by the weekend a 2,500-page indictment will be presented to the court. Hopefully this case will progress further, and the Turkish public, including ourselves, will get better informed what these people were up to.
Let's go to Halidin Solmaz-Türk in Istanbul. The military, as I understand it, has very much denied links to this group, Ergenekon, which these detainees are allegedly linked to. But presumably they identify with each other's causes. Is that a fair way of describing it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, this is a small group which has been taken out of proportion, out of context, and has just artificially brought into the spotlight in Turkey. It's just fabrication. I don't deny the group existed. Obviously, there is such a group, but I myself, as a Turkish citizen, along with the rest of the country, have been waiting for longer than 1 year to know what this whole case is all about. But certainly, I cannot imagine any link, any link between the Turkish armed forces and this group.
Is there not, however, an issue, Halidin Solmaz-Türk, that a lot of these men who've been arrested are ex-military men themselves?
Yes, of course. I don't deny that, including those 2 4-stars who served at the highest level until recently. But still, we do not know why they were taken under police custody. Nobody made any explanation at all. But I cannot ever imagine that these 2 gentlemen and other military arrested yesterday, 2 days ago, had any connection at all to a group that might be thinking about, changing the government through use of force. Not at all.
Let's get some thoughts from Anders Moore.
I know them very well.
Okay, then we'll get some thoughts from Anders Moore in Marseille. What do you make of the army's attempts to very much disassociate themselves from these arrests? Is it I don't want to say a futile exercise, but it's tough given that, as I said, these men are ex-military men?
I think it's pretty premature to sort of judge in advance what the outcome will be, but it's also interesting to see how the Turkish army has been urging calm when these arrests have been made in the last few days.
And what about the AK party themselves? What's your view of what they're doing at the moment? The initial question I put was that this could have been timed, not coincidentally, but with what is happening with the AK party in court at the moment. What do you make of it?
I think that connection could be there, but I think it's impossible at this moment of time to say whether that is the case or not, considering that this case has been going on for a year. But I think time will tell much later on when we have most of the cards on the table.
And what are your thoughts on the group in question that's been arrested, Ergenekon? Is the government right to be as concerned as they seem to be with this group?
If the allegations are true, it's of course extremely serious. But what is positive in this whole setting is that for the first time, if the allegations are true, those trying to attempt a coup will be put on trial, and that will be a first in Turkish history.
Indeed. Let me go back to Suat Kılıçdaroğlu in Ankara. Does the government, and this is something else I've been reading in some of the press, that the government is perhaps, by going with these very, very public arrests, quite dramatic pictures that we've seen, that they're actually running the risk of inflaming an already intense and emotional situation in Turkey?
I don't think so. I tend to see what's been happening since early 2007 as a process. The Turkish democracy is going through a process where we have to weed out those who are willing to take measures that are outside of the game. And I think this case should be seen in this perspective. It's true, as the earlier commentator said, this is the first time in Turkish history that 4-star generals are being taken into custody, but one should not forget that according to Turkish law, the chief of staff needs to give permission to that. I would suspect there must be evidence submitted to the chief of staff before they would allow those arrests to take place. I just hope that those gentlemen are not guilty and that, that they were not involved in this. But one should see this as a continuation of a process where Turkish democracy consolidates, and those who want to who want to interfere into the democratic process need to know that there are consequences to their actions.
OK, we're going to take a short break here on Inside Story. When we come back, we'll head to the courtroom and take a closer look at the history of confrontations between the state and the Islamic establishment in Turkey. Back in a moment.